Hi everybody, this is Code Chris, and today I want to talk about some of the things that I've learned from my jobs in the past. Um, Mainly the bad stuff that I've learned, or what I've been able to take away from the experience, and these are mistakes that I don't want to repeat myself. So, with that being said, please press this like button, smash all that stuff, comment, yada yada yada. Let's get into it. So, the first thing I've noticed is that there's usually some sort of like ceiling, some sort of cap to improvement, right? So like when you first get into a job, because you're, especially in the beginning, you learn the most that first couple of weeks to months, depending on, you know, what you're coming in with. And that's when I definitely learned the most. And then it just sort of starts to stagnate. And there's always this idea that, oh, well, we want to make sure that you're challenged and, whatever the case is. But that's really not. I mean, you have a job to do, and there is sort of like a cap at, you know, what you're learning. Because at a certain point, you're not getting constant feedback from a mentor. You're not getting anything new, and you're not really being challenged on any sort of new projects or tasks. You start to see a formula, a pattern that is repeated over and over and over, right? If you're dealing with tickets, right, which is pretty common, you do learn a lot, but at a certain point, you've seen the same thing over and over and over, and in most jobs have some sort of legacy code, some sort of old setups and practices that you are just maintaining. And so these aren't even things that are practices that are improving your skill set. Rather, you're kind of just debugging a lot of old stuff to kind of keep it alive because it's just too much effort, cost, time, whatever the reason that's given, to make it better. So that's kind of one thing I've noticed is you kind of get this sort of this cap at a certain point of, you know, what you can improve on. Now, one of the reasons that people say, like, hey, when you're getting into developing, like, it's great to work for a company because you can learn so much from, this or that, and you're gonna learn a lot on the job. And that's true, like I said, in the beginning you do. And then they hit that cap. Otherwise, it is expected that, especially in the coding field, things are constantly changing, new improvements are coming around. You are expected to learn this stuff on your own time, outside of work hours, outside of your normal work life, whatever. That's why these guys want to make sure that you live and breathe code 24/7, that you're doing your own projects on your own 24/7, and that you're just, so aware of what's going on, even if you aren't using any of those new skill sets, any of those new practices at your new job or your current job or whatever, just because they want to make sure that you're, with it, whatever that means. And they want to make sure that you keep learning all this stuff on your own time. And the reason for that is over time, your skill set becomes a little less valuable, right? There's gonna be people coming out of boot camps, out of online courses, out of college. Maybe not college, but there's a whole different thing. But the point is that there's gonna be these new people who come in, usually gonna be interns, right? Especially with the pandemic, I mean, you can see a giant influx in interns and a drop in full time employees just because, you know, money. So it's definitely reasonable to make the assumption and the correlation that, hey, if you're not keeping up with your education, you're going to slowly start to fall behind. So it is expected that your education keeps getting up to date, keeps getting updated on tabs, just so that you can maintain your place in line of where you currently are, whether or not you use it, by the way. Now, this might just be my experience, but if you are interested in being well rounded, right? So in college, there's this idea that, well, the reason you have to take your gen eds is because they want you to be a well rounded student, right? They want you to be able to be well rounded, whatever that means. I think it really just means that you have, experience and education, all these different little aspects of different fields, and they can all kind of correlate into different things. And I think that's actually true in the entrepreneurial route. That's true if you're trying to build your own businesses, if you're trying to create your own stuff, whether it be content, projects. But what I'm trying to get at is if you are hired to be a developer, right? And you know maybe some SEO stuff, right? Just for the general Google algorithm, or maybe just how YouTube works, right? Or you have some marketing ideas or strategies or whatever field that isn't your actual thing that you were hired for. I mean, it's great. It's awesome to know that you have that you're interested in producing blogs, or you're interested in producing additional content that could be beneficial to the company. And maybe you're making these proposals to the company to try and show, like, hey, like, there's so much more to me than just being a developer. Like, my skills as a developer are just one pillar of what I can contribute to the company. And I, am well rounded, and I can bring in all these other, I can see these overlaps between these different seemingly unrelated fields, and there's a lot of value in there. Nah, really, you're being hired for your particular field, your particular job, whether that's marketing, whether that's um advertising, that's going to be content production, like whatever it is. Like, hey man, that's your lane, that's your field, that's what we hired you for. You stick with that. At best, what might happen is you might get heard by somebody above you, or maybe it goes all the way up the chain. Maybe if you're lucky, it gets pushed on or shared with some people in different divisions that are more related to it, right? But don't worry, you're not going to be involved in it at all, because why would you be, right? You're not hired for that thing. Thanks for the idea. If it's worth anything, we'll benefit from it, but we're not going to in any way do anything with it unless it really, really goes above and beyond. And we'll just, have a team that does that. Go ahead and hear it. Nice work. Attaboy. In most cases, what you'll usually have is some sort of, oh, that's a really interesting topic. Huh. Maybe you could give a talk about it and share that idea with the rest of the group. Yeah, you can have like your own little personal TED talk, because that's why you got into this, right? That's why you're sharing this idea, because you want to share your own little TED talk about how animation could really improve this clientele, this client. One thing that you probably might get is, huh, animation to help convert sales. It's an interesting idea. Let's do this. How about we give you your own little personal, like, TED talk, right? You can give a little TED talk to the team, and we'll go ahead and listen, because why not? There's free pizza, right? It's gonna do. We'll do a lunch and education kind of atmosphere going on. And what we'll go ahead and do with that is you can give a presentation. Some people will pay attention, some won't, but ultimately nothing's going to happen from it, because we've got schedules, timelines. Our design team has already designed the designs, and throwing in some of these extra ideas, not really, something that we're seriously going to consider, but we want to make sure that you feel heard. So let's give you your own little TED talk. Maybe it goes somewhere, maybe it doesn't. Most likely it's not going to, and we're going to put very little effort into making that possible. But you get your own TED talk. Maybe you can put it on your resume, but that's not really important because you're working for us. So you go ahead and give your TED talk. We'll keep it within the company, because, we don't want that to be something that you can put or share somewhere else. That doesn't make much sense. We want the company to benefit from that kind of knowledge. Another big thing, optimization and efficiency will always take a back seat to budget, timeline, and just legacy, right? So if there is legacy stuff, right, whether it be paperwork, codes, uh, file structures, naming conventions, um, just anything that's already present, already existing, that in the long run, and maybe the long run's only a couple months, maybe even a year from now, but ultimately in the long run will give you much faster returns by investing the time now to do either better practices, something that's more efficient, something that's more clear for the future. Or is it really about just, listen, this just needs to get done. They need the button to look red. So let's just make the button look red and then move on with our lives. And I totally understand that. By all means, like, no need to, rework things over and over. But if you just see that and bring up that, hey, listen, there's some efficiencies that wouldn't just be for one project, but for many projects, right? Well, there's a whole bureaucracy involved in, like, well, so and so's got to ask so and so who's in charge of this, who's in charge. There's a whole hierarchy of things. I mean, and honestly, any ideas coming from the bottom to the top, it just doesn't really work that way in most environments. And that's just one thing that I've, at least in my experiences, have come across where efficiency and optimization isn't usually the goal. Usually the goal is to, in my opinion, usually the goal is to try and get things, up and running and moved on without really thinking of some of the long-term costs that it could maybe be costing the client or the employees, or just in general make everything more efficient so that you can do better work, right? That's at least my opinion and at least my experience of my opinion, my opinion based on my experiences. Now, your pay raise. Oh, yes, your pay raise. Well, your pay raise is not going to be based on your performance, right? It's going to be based on what you started at. In most cases, the value you bring to the company is not going to be equal to your pay raise, right? Most companies are going to give you, if they give you a pay raise, something that just keeps up with inflation, maybe goes a little bit past it, right? Inflation is somewhere between 2 and 3% ballpark. That's at least how I think about it. And you'll get a raise maybe somewhere 3 to 5%, right? Maybe you do something above and beyond, like the most incredible, amazing thing, and maybe you can get a crazy 10% raise, right? Or maybe it's a certain dollar amount that you're shooting for, right? Those are few and far between. But more importantly, if you start at $60,000, right? And you bring $100,000 of value because of stuff you've created for the company or optimizations you've created or whatever the case is, if you've brought more value that can over exceed $100,000, for example, the odds are you won't be getting that number. Instead, you might be getting a reasonable bump, but let's say you bring in significantly. Let's say you can find a way to save a company $100,000 a year, right? Or more than that, or save thousands of dollars per employee with a more efficient system. With that, you're saving the company tons of money. All right, maybe you'll get a little something extra, or maybe you'll just be identified as, good work. And if you were to do this again, listen, we can't just keep giving you these big raises. We can't just keep giving you big raises. But why not? If you're bringing in more value, why can't you give bigger raises? What is the rule? But there's a certain percentage that we're only allotted. Unless, of course, you change job titles, right? You become a lead, senior, super senior, whatever position it is, like some title That's what matters for, arbitrary reasons. And then we can change salaries, because you can't make more than so and so. But if so and so is not bringing the same kind of value, I would argue that's probably the argument that, yeah, you can pay this guy more than so and so. It's just, once again, corporate bureaucracy and, hierarchy structure and that kind of stuff. And then there's the That Boy. The That Boy is essentially, if you put in, because there's a tight deadline, you got this cram session, you're putting in extra time that's taking away from your personal life. You're going in early or staying late, or compensating for time later during the day or weekend. That a boy. Thank you very much. You'll be maybe appreciated, rarely rewarded. It's really just expected of you. It's expected that, hey, if you like your job, right? If you like being employed, you will definitely be sure to, put us first, because we're the ones signing your check. So, don't expect to be rewarded with anything tangible, right? You might get a pizza party. I mean, everybody likes pizza parties, but otherwise, don't expect, like, a bonus of any kind or something like that. Once again, this is just my experience and opinion. I'm sure there are definitely places out there that there are, take it back. There are definitely places out there that are going to make sure that their employees are monetarily compensated for their extra efforts, that they're going to make sure that their employees feel, hey, we really appreciate you, and we're putting our money where our mouth is. Like, hey, here's some stock, here's some profit sharing, here's a bonus, here's some extra PTO, whatever it is, something that they can offer you. Hey, let's give you some more of a flexible schedule because we trust you. Whatever the case is, there's going to be something to show that they appreciate the work you've done. And that's some companies. I'm just not, I just don't have the same kind of experience with that kind of setup. Well, everybody, those are just some of my thoughts on some of the things that I've come across. Let me know in the comments down below anything that you've experienced. Do you see the same thing? Have you experienced the same stuff that I have? Or is it just pretty unique to me? Let me know in the comment section down below. Make sure you give a thumbs up, subscribe, all that nonsense. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.